I'm Werner Sammer. I'm the local representative for Styria for the Austrian Startup Network. I'm working as corporate marketing and PR manager at the startup company Build Up to 11 here in Graz. But first and foremost, I'm the co-founder of Ideentriebwerk Graz. Ideentriebwerk Graz is a student organization that promotes entrepreneurship, especially amongst students, college students. We want to show them career opportunities apart from the classic big company jobs. We want to support them to realize their ideas. For that reason, we organize events and different workshops to show them how to build their own startup. We want to lower the initial hurdle, so to say, and we want to support the startups and the founders to build good startups here in Graz.
Yeah, hello, my name is Dominik and I'm one of the founders of Arivo. And we at Arivo, we make smart parking solutions. So we mainly have our own license plate recognition and build software around it, which digitalizes the whole parking experience.
Hello, I'm Simon Werba from Graz, and I'm the CEO and co-founder from DigniSens. We're a IoT medtech company, and we're developing an IoT sensor device for the nursing sector, stationary and private nursing sector.
I think a great startup team is a prerequisite. Good team exists of ambitious people with different skills, with a diversity of skills, but there also should be a focus on timing and execution, because I think the time period in which a startup starts is very important if a startup is successful or not. If you think about Runtastic wouldn't have been successful if they had started 2 years later, for example, because they got the right time period to found their startup, to start their idea and to execute it perfectly. So I think they also got the right and innovative business model for their market, which are the runners and the sportive people. The funding and other things, I think, are just later on. So you can also bootstrap your startup if you want, if all those points before are perfectly executed. So you have a great team, you have the perfect timing and execution for the idea.
I think that, as a lot of people say, the team is really important, and I think that's really true, because it mostly matters how the people work together and if they are able to handle the problems that occur every day, or if they make them even bigger. So it's for sure the team, I would say.
I think the most important part is always to take a look on your customer needs, specific customer needs, because if you develop a product, you think about that it's very good and has very good functionality or usability or whatsoever. It doesn't count if you don't always look on your customers' needs. So we, the first experience we made is this was part of our roadmap actually, from the idea to the product development. Always talk to the future customers, talk to them, do interviews, get your feedback, get your input from our perspective, from nursing experts and from health experts, to always know if this, what you're doing, really matters, and if the future customers are actually willing to pay for it in the end of the day. That's the most important part.
The startup scene in Graz and in Styria is growing, which is nice, because as Ideentriebwerk Graz, we organize events with 100, 150 attendees each time. Our startup Spritzer, which are Stammtische, and we also do online workshops with 60 and 80 attendees. This is pretty good to bring more people into this community, to have a big exchange of ideas, of different approaches, of different backgrounds. In Styria, we have a lot of ambitious founders, and they have a pretty good education because we have good universities and universities of applied sciences here, where the founders and the team members have a good basic background knowledge of their fields. I think what's pretty good about the Styrian startup scene is that the initiatives in this ecosystem are working together and not against each other. If you found a startup, you can come to one organization, and this organization will bring you to another organization to bring forward your idea, and will help you in the different startup stages, from the idea stage to the growth stage and so on. So I think there is a good ecosystem that supports startups in each startup stage.
I think that we really have a great startup community, especially in the beginning. It really helped us a lot. The problems of the startups are pretty similar, and in Graz we have a very good community. We were also in the Gründungsgarage, which is a course where you can start playing around with startups. And then we were also in the Science Park Graz, and I think it really helped us a lot, the startup community in Graz. I can recommend to everyone visiting the events of the Ideentriebwerk. So we also took part in the so-called startup playground, which were our very, very first steps. And it really helps you a lot to get connected to the right people in Graz. So the community is quite small. And if you start going to these events within some months, for sure, you know everyone in Graz who can help you starting a business.
As I mentioned, we're based in Graz, and in Graz we have several accelerator programs like the Gründungsgarage, Science Park Academy, Ideentriebwerk, Female Founder South, and whatsoever. So basically, Graz, although it just has about 300,000 inhabitants, Graz has of course, related to the fact that there are several universities in Graz, we have a very strong connection between the accelerator programs and within the startup community. So we have a very broad spectrum of different businesses within the startup companies, or they're fintech, they're medtech, they're health tech, consumer good related, outdoor gadget related startups. Lots of mobility, e-mobility related startups. So there's a very broad spectrum of different startup spheres, but I think they're all working quite good together. So we're all pulling on the same strings. We all want to be successful, and there's lots of information transfer within the startups as well. So I think in Graz we have a very good situation in this case. Yes, we are actually connected to other cities. So we have a business membership at 0 to 1, for example. So one of our teammates, our technician, is in the Talent Garden. So we have a connection to Vienna as well and to other startup companies. But I think it would be, and it's always my idea that I try to communicate within the Grazer community, that there should be like a hub for every type of startup idea or startup field. Probably like a small lobbyism, let's call it small startup lobbyism, related to the different startup types we have in Austria. And that would be very nice if this could work without city boundaries. So with Linzer startups and startups from Innsbruck, Klagenfurt, Vienna, whatsoever.
Yeah, first find a good team with diverse skills. Then involve your customers in your development of the startup idea and the business development, because you can pick, for example, the lean startup approach, where you get out of the building and prove that your concept works. That's very important in the first stage of your startup. You need to think about a good business model, and then later on about the financing, because a good business model should work that way, so you don't need big fundings in the first place. It supports some things, but a good business model works also with the hard work you put in.
Yeah, I think one of the success tips for sure is that you should care about your customer. So for us in the early days, it was very important that we listened to the feedback of the customer and build our product really to the needs of the customer. So you should not, at least when you are a founder with no industry experience, as we were, I think it's very important to listen to the customer. Another advice is also, I think, that you should go out with your product quite fast. You should not try to make it super perfect. The product should work, of course, and should be reliable, which is very important, especially also for us. But it should not be over-optimized, because otherwise it takes much too long until you have your first version.
Always according to the product or to the idea that you have, as I said before, always take a look at the customer's needs. That's the most important part. Then I think the second most important thing is to take a look at your founding team. So choose very wisely which team members do you choose, or which team members do you want to have at your side when you found a company and develop an idea, because all the team members always have to be sure that they can trust each other and they can give their commitment as planned. So and the third most important part is that you always check that your team, according to your company, that you have a very bright span of knowledge inside your company. So always take a look that you have an expert for financial issues, for the hardware development, like software or hardware development, that you have someone who is familiar with business planning or business development at all. The more knowledge you connect inside your own company, the better, because then you are not then you don't have the need to always consult external experts, which is, by the way, very cost intensive. So always take a look that the more knowledge you cover within your own company, the better. This is the third value, or the third most important thing, I think.
We have that question: what are the positive and negative sides in terms of the startup scene in your region? Do you wish to have more connections to the other states of Austria?
Of course, that would help if there would be networks, if they are face-to-face networks or online networks. That would make no difference. If there would be exchange of experiences and knowledge, that would be helpful for the Styrian founders too. I think that other things that would also support things like the limited risk capital here in Styria and so on, if we have those networks more connected. What I've mentioned before was that Graz is not on the map as a startup city yet, but we are working on that, because I think we have a lot of good ideas here in a lot of fields that could be important in the next 10-20 years.
Yeah, I think that Styria is quite a good place, because we have the technical university here. We really have good people. On the other side, of course, it's not that an international place, but just to start and also to have your home base, I think it's very good. So for development and also, the startup community, Styria is quite a good place, I would say.
In Graz, Styria, and in Austria, of course, I think it's very connected with a lot of pleasure to, of course, there's always the aspect of risk, like in every business, so not just in Austria, so you always have the risk to fail, of course. But with the help of the national authority and the funding companies like AWS, FFG, SFG in Styria, you always get a very good financial kickstart. This is one point which is always very important, because money always counts in every business. So we had a very good financial kickstart. And the other aspect is that I think it's a very nice factor that we are here in Graz have several startup accelerator and incubator programs. And therefore, if you have an idea that's worth to be incubated, you always have to chance to get a free working space for 1 or 1.5 years. And with this help, and with the help and the consultants of the experts within these accelerator programs, there's always the chance that someone takes you the right direction, or someone helps you in the first steps of founding a company. Because in my company, two of the co-founders of my company have experience to be self-employed or to found a company, so they have experience. But if you're not experienced in this, and you come as an employee or as a student, and if you want to found a startup or to make an idea run, I think Styria is a very good place to do it, because for every single aspect of your startup founding process, there's a specific knowledge or coverage that can help you in Graz.
There are a lot of fields in which the Styrian startup scene is good, but I would like to mention three, which is first the software sector, but especially the healthcare sector and the health tech sector. And third is the green tech sector, where there are thriving, innovative startups in those fields who build the sustainable technologies for the future.
I always had the idea of having our own business, and then basically by chance we started this project. In the beginning it was a project, and then of course we had first customers, we had first employees, until it really got a company, I would say. So it was a little bit luck, and I think the main idea is the main idea was always to do your own thing and just to be not dependent on what other people say, and just start something by yourself. At least for me, yeah. As I said, we never planned to do what we are doing right now. It happened a bit by chance. And of course now we are really into the topic and we love it, but it would be a lie that I would say since I'm 5 years old, I always knew that I want to change something in the parking industry. That's not true.
I had a moment when I had this idea, and for several years this idea worked in my back of my head, and I always thought about it. And in the end, or in fall of 2018, a very good friend of mine and I, we had the idea to make it actually work, because we're both background was law, and we said, okay, now we're actually not unhappy in our workspace as an employee, but we always wanted to achieve the goal that to be self-employed, to make your own idea or your own vision work. And fortunately, we took that step. And it was very, from kind of a perspective, it was a very brave step for us. But till now, it absolutely worked out. So I can give the advice: if you have a good idea, and if you have an idea that where customers are willing to pay for this idea, because this actually makes complete your business work, always try it. Always try it, because you always can fail, and if your idea is good but you don't have customers, okay, that's unfortunate, but you can always try, because in Austria there are subsidies, and if you work in an honest way and are focused to your goal, there's always a way to make it run. And I could give this advice to any student or to anyone, not just young people, to anyone. If you have an idea, if you work on the idea, try it. Yeah, that's it basically.
Yeah, we've mentioned it before. It would be good to have a broad network where founders get into, exchange their experiences, but also have the connections to other markets to boost their products in those markets. That would be pretty important. To bring Graz and the Styrian startup scene on the startup map in Europe. That would be another important point, because I think we have the technologies and innovation here that we can be proud of it. So we should be the front runners and not we should be the front runners in that field. And yeah, as Ideenwerk Graz, we're looking to have more founders. The more the better. So if we can bring more startups and more students to found startups, that would be really